Welcome to Halftime, a show dedicated to equipping and inspiring people to accomplish what God has prepared them for. I'm Doug Piper, and I'm a Halftime alumni, and these webinars are actually part of my Halftime journey. Thank you so much for joining us, and if you'd like to work on creating more significance in your life, or maybe you know someone that's in that season, you can find out more by going to halftime.org. That's www.halftime.org. And I'll include that information again at the end of the program. Hopefully I can successfully bring everybody up here, because I want you to know today we have Lloyd Reeb and two amazing Halftime alumni, Tana Greene and Brad Rex. Tana is an entrepreneur who has employed thousands of temporary workers in the warehouse and supply chain arena. Since joining us on last week's Halftime webinar, Tana asked God to help her connect displaced workers with supply chains needing help. This led to the creation of her new app, which is just the beginning of God's work through MyWorkChoice. This is the company she and her husband founded. This past weekend, Fox Business posted an article on the newly launched app, and after just 1 hour of posting, over 3,500 people have hit the app seeking jobs. Brad Rex led Disney's Epcot theme park for years and became a world expert in shaping the customer experience. Today, he leads a new organization, eHome Counseling Group, EHCG, which provides the highest quality counseling services via technology to serve people in their homes. Through EHCG, Brad and his team are able to serve people by partnering with addiction treatment facilities, employers, insurance providers, veterans organizations, universities, and correctional facilities. We also have Lloyd Reeb, which is a successful real estate developer. He is the author of 3 books and the founding partner of Halftime Institute. And today we're going to be discussing a very timely topic, using your platform for good in times of crisis. Welcome, everyone.
Hey, Doug.
Welcome.
Glad everybody's joined us. This is great to be getting together. Lloyd, it seems like our entire culture is under siege right now. Mm-hmm. Could you capsulize the discussion that we're going to be enjoying today?
Yeah, it's an interesting convergence of the isolation that's resulting from, our separation and quarantining, and also the financial crisis that's happening and sending many workers home. Those that work for hourly wages are under stress, and the convergence of those two creates people at home under financial stress, under psychological stress, and isolated from their normal support group. And so it made sense for us to get Brad and Tana together, because they're working on both ends of that convergence. So if you think about the history of the church, the Lord's grace and mercy shines often the brightest in dark times throughout history. And this is a dark time. And those of us that are Halftime alumni are uniquely equipped to be able to make a contribution, perhaps our best contribution, in dark times. And we believe that Halftimers are equipped in it uniquely because, first of all, they've gotten clear on your calling. If you are an alumni of the Halftime Institute, you've come through the Fellows Program or a round table around the world somewhere, you've already worked on what is your unique calling, just like Brad and Tana have done. And so in this 30-minute webinar, it's part of a series to try to figure out how can we bring our very best contribution in times of need? How can we use our platform for good?
Well, thank you, Lloyd. We'll move into the main discussion momentarily, but there are a few quick logistical items I'd like to go through before we move into the main presentation. First of all, we do these on a regular basis. The next scheduled webinar is April 23rd, which is Exiting Your First Half Career Well. But considering the circumstances, there are some webinars that we will have that may be unscheduled at this moment. So one of the best ways to find out is to click the follow button that's up there. And then that way you'll be notified anytime there is a new webinar coming out. I encourage you to continue the conversation by asking questions right down here at the bottom of the screen. You can submit them in writing by clicking on the Ask a Question link, and we would love it if you would respond to our poll. This gives an idea of where our audience is. It's a quick one-click poll. We also have chat over there, and I see lots of folks, and I appreciate that. I see Teresa from New Jersey, Cami from, Oregon, Zella from Mississippi. So we've got folks from all over. Please share where you're coming from there and just kind of let us know. And John asked if this has been recorded because the internet is tough. And yes, it will be recorded. And that was a nice segue to the exact comment I wanted to make there. However, the internet has been flaky for probably all of us. And just know if it's not playing correctly, chances are if you click the refresh up there, it will restore almost everything. And if you're having audio issues, just double check that your audio is not muted or turned down. Everybody that registered will get a link to the replay that you're welcome to forward to others. So if I can get everything here still working smoothly, we'll get everybody back on screen. And now we're going to talk to the poll. So in our poll, the question that we have there is, when you think about using your platform for good, which best represents your current feelings this week? We have 4 questions. The dominant answer by far, and this has continued since it's been on, is 64% say, I have clarity about my best contribution, but I'm looking for more creative ways to make it happen. Perhaps, how can I find more leverage? The second one, and that actually continues to grow, second to that is I see lots of needs and have a hard time determining which ones to focus on first. And then one with just 5%, well, really the other two, Lloyd, are just at 5%. So I think by far, with over 70% feeling that they have clarity, but they're looking for more creative ways to make it happen, which is great, because I think that's what we're here. What do you think of that, Lloyd?
Well, it makes me think of that verse in Galatians 6, verse 5, where it says, each of us must do the creative best we can with our own life. And Tana, you were saying just a few minutes ago while we were chit-chatting ahead of time that you've been trying different things. You and I went through Halftime together 10 years ago. Yeah. And I think at the time I had a whole lot dark. You might be able to see this. I've had these silver highlights put in here recently.
Mine are just covered up. I have them.
Yeah, you bumped around, did a bunch of cool things, and but you're in the zone now.
Yes. Took a lot of searching to understand what my platform was and where I could give the best back. And I think what's interesting is I've had my business for 32 years, and yet I went all around it looking for this calling that was important to me to find. And for some reason, somewhere along the way, I got this message that being in business and making money could not correlate with calling and doing good. So I would run out trying to find all this, and all along the platform that I had was right under my feet, and that was helping people get jobs. I started this in 1988 to help people get jobs, and yet I don't know where somewhere along the way I thought I needed to go do something else. So clarity really came to me about 2.5 years ago, when we were really struggling with trying to keep hourly employees employed. The unemployment rate continued to get tighter and tighter and tighter. Turnover was at an all-time high. Absenteeism was 31% a day. So if I needed 1,000 workers, 700 were going to show up. And by the time I knew that, it was too late to do anything about it. So we were seeing companies suffer, but more than that, we were seeing dignity in employees lost. And I thought about it, and I prayed about it, and we had huge clarity in that what they're all seeking is flexibility in those contingent roles. So how can we bring flexibility to the working class? So the purpose became empowering the working class. And we started with one client, a very large client, and that had 700 contingent workers. And we said, can we let them take an app and off of their phones and schedule their own schedule? We'll put out what your needs are, and we'll see what happens. About 6 months into that, we had the biggest aha moment. We had 97% show rate on every shift, every day. We could guarantee no overtime because we could fill every shift. The workers were so happy that we had a 99% retention rate. So we said, we are really on to something. So we began to build the technology for that. Well, when the crisis hit and we had 3.4 million file for unemployment just in the last week, which is a record breaker ever in our history. You think about all these displaced workers that are out here hurting that need to find work. And then you got the critical supply chain over here that needs the workers. And it's like, I'm the conduit to help that happen. We virtually recruit in a safe environment. They stay at home and they do it all. I can have them to work in 24 hours. We can build fast, large communities around the country and redeploy this workforce. So I got so excited. I started reaching out. I said, but I need more opportunities. So when Fox did an article last Saturday on our company, our call centers and our app went crazy. We had over 20,000 people come, and I said, I'm in my spot. I'm where I'm supposed to be. So now I'm really talking to employers, as many that will open their doors and say, I will accept flexibility, because I think that's where we need to go in allowing these workers. I mean, we created these 40-hour schedules 120 years ago when there were only men in the workforce. We haven't stopped to think about how the worker has changed. And even when this crisis ends, flexibility is truly going to be the new norm for a lot of our hourly workforce. So I'm just honored that God is working through me to bring this to people in need right now. And I just want to continue to find more opportunities for them.
And Tana, back to your point about feeling like, shouldn't I be doing something in the nonprofit space or something? It doesn't take away from your involvement in domestic violence, right?
No, it does not.
You're still the chairwoman of the Domestic Violence Center, and you've written about it, and you speak about it because you've experienced that. So I love the way these run in parallel. Your pain of your past provides a passion for that area of domestic violence, and it brings compassion.
Yes.
But then you've got this competency, this core competency. It's like Bob Dahl said last week that, you know what, if you're not good at what you're doing, you're not going to have a platform to be a salt and light for Jesus in the dark time like this. Mm-hmm. So in his case, he's got to be good at investing. In your case, you got to be good at connecting people that can show up and work and have them vetted and have all the paperwork done. Yes. So it's easy to make it happen.
Yeah, it's exciting times for us. It's scary. You worry every day on what's going to happen the next day. There isn't a playbook for this. Decisions are made on the hour. So it's been very stressful, but I'm so charged to know that I'm where I'm supposed to be right now. It just feels right.
And one day when we were building Halftime, Peter Drucker said to Bob, remember that the opportunity for people always comes over the transom. And it's interesting, as he said to Bob before that, he said, some of the most unhappy people I know are planners. And you think about Peter Drucker as the modern, the father of modern management theory, and he taught about strategic planning. And so what? Like, the most unhappy people are planners. And what he was saying was, if you plan and you think you're going to script it all out, like you and I did when we did a roadmap together 10 years ago, and you put it up on the wall and you presented it and you got feedback, well, it's not going to play out like that.
No.
But what that did was it framed up your thinking, right? The first thing is you were looking for your calling.
Yes.
The second thing is you started to create capacity. So you had the thinking time. I mean, you could have just been driving your next quarter's earnings, right, in the company,
Yep.
but you were doing these low-cost probes. And then the third thing I watched was it turned your heart outward. You know, so many successful CEOs, your heart gets turned inward and it becomes more about you and your family and your next toys and next, and, you know, I remember a time when you wrote an article about domestic violence and someone came up to you at Fresh Mart or something and said,
Yeah, it was a little shopping center. They came up and they said, I know you. And I'm looking at them thinking, oh my gosh, who is this? I don't remember this person. And they said, I read your article. I gave it to my friend who had been in a domestic violence relationship for 20 years, and she finally left. I left bawling. I thought, you don't realize who you impact when you speak out like this and tell your story. I hid that story for 30 years. I wouldn't tell my story because I thought people would think less of me. And once I started being authentic and telling the story, I can't tell you, the opportunities just kept opening and opening and opening for me to share that story. And just you don't even need to know that somebody's being impacted because you know they are, just because you're being your authentic self. And it feels good.
yeah, and it is good. And the Lord smiles on that. I mean, he was there in those times when you were experiencing domestic violence and you wonder, why didn't he do something to stop it? And, you know, and his heart probably undoubtedly was breaking, but to see you using that to touch people. And what I love about this story, your story, is, you know, your heart is really just outward oriented. And it looked like, okay, so Tana should, you know, sell her company and go do domestic violence stuff around the world, be an advocate for people experiencing domestic violence. But like Drucker taught us, the opportunity comes over the transom, and here it is. And yet yesterday you were on Fox News National, and who knows what God will do. So the big opportunity for those of us in the Halftime family is, if you run an organization that happens to be on the ramp up, some businesses like hotels have zero occupancy. Other people are just killing it and they need temporary workers. And what we want to try to do for Tana and you is to connect you. You know, Halftime Institute teaches, coaches, and connects. And it's the connecting piece right now in this time of crisis that can make all the difference.
Thank you, Lloyd. As many as I can get to work will be fantastic.
Yeah, and God will smile and he's going to make it happen. And so way to go, Tana. So Brad, take us into your journey. You know, you had a really diverse experience, first as a nuclear submarine officer. You and I've never really talked about what it was like down under the water for months on end. But then leading the Epcot Center, I mean, that you became a world expert at the customer experience. And then I'll never forget when you were in Halftime, you mentioned how a novel idea of taking the most dysfunctional, bad customer experience industries and try to fix them. And so you tackled the funeral home business and bought a bunch of funeral homes, and now you're on to mental health. So through that, your calling has gotten refined, low cost probe after low cost probe. So talk about what you would say is your calling today.
Well, Lloyd, Tim Keller in his book, Every Good Endeavor, says that we are co-cultivators with God in his garden of creation. And that really impacted me. And then I read about the concept of tikkun olam, which is from the Hebrew tradition, and it talks about being repairers of creation. And so if you combine those two concepts, then to me, I believe my calling is to be a co-cultivator with God in repairing his creation. And if you look at what Christ did when he came down on this earth, that's exactly what he did. He helped to repair the creation, to show people this is what the creation was intended to be, and then ultimately gave his own life in order to restore the relationship of man to God. And so I know I've had a very diverse background, but that's kind of the weaving in together of how I kind of see my calling in my life.
Hmm. Well, and I know that even at the Epcot Center, you were weaving faith into it in ways that were what I would call winsome, like the Christmas episode there, where I think 150,000 people would come through and witness the Christmas story. And I
Candlelight
think,
processional. Yeah.
what did they call it?
The Epcot candlelight processional.
Yeah, yeah. And then one night, didn't the CEO of Disney show up unexpectedly? You're kind of wondering, okay, how's this going to go?
And he loved it. He loved it. So
Yeah.
it worked out very well.
So that's winsome. And so how would you say, when you came through halftime, you had to craft a mission statement and build a roadmap and all that stuff. How would you say, what is your mission statement today, if you don't mind sharing it?
Well, through halftime, I came up with the mission statement that I wanted to be a godly leader of competence, commitment, character, and compassion who transforms industries, companies, and people to achieve their God-given potential.
Wow. So if you are listening or watching and you don't know your calling, I mean, think about that. At what point are you going to take the time to get crystal clear on your purpose on this planet? And that's the kind of thing that we can help you with, even in a time like this where there's crisis and you're sitting at home wondering, what can I do? Just 2 or 3 calls with a coach could probably bring you to a point of a breakthrough like that, where Brad's got this kind of clarity. And then for you, Brad, it's a filter, right? It lets you say no to so many good things that would come your way, so you can say yes to the really great things, like this mental health thing you're working on.
Absolutely.
So, so take us to the mental health thing. How did you get into that? Why is that important? And then take us to, how does that apply today in this crisis?
Well, about 3.5 years ago, a good friend of mine, Rogers Curvin, came to me, and Rogers was a pioneer in taking college courses online back in the 1990s. And so we take that for granted today. In fact, it's kind of ironic to think about all the college courses are online even as we speak. But back then, that was revolutionary. And so he had gone through a tragic loss of his wife from cancer. And as he was grieving that, he said, I want to do something good. And he picked up an article about veteran suicides. He said, this is something we can fix. And what we need to do here is to make mental health counseling accessible. We need to take it online. And so if you think about it, now, instead of going to a counselor's office, the concept of mental health counseling hasn't changed since Freud. You're expected to go drive to a counselor's office, have your session, drive back. Now you can have your counseling session on your smartphone, your tablet, your computer, at the time that's convenient for you, at the place that you want to have your session. And you remove the barriers of geography. 55% of US counties have no mental health resources. That's pretty staggering when you think about it.
That's crazy.
And many of them are rural, and so they have absolutely no mental health resources. And so by delivering it through technology, everybody has access. It's completely confidential, and you can match the best counselors with the needs that people have. So when Rogers came to me and said, hey, do you want to help me with this? It's like, hey, I get to transform another industry. And so got me very jazzed about it. And so over the past 3 or so years, we've been developing a nationwide network of counselors that have been able to help people remotely and in whatever situation they're in.
So for the Halftime Tribe, think about it this way. If you have an employee base that's now sequestered at home, and some of them are going to experience some mental health issues, you can tackle that at a scalable level in partnership with Brad. And then maybe you are leading I have a good friend here in Charlotte that leads the premier Christian counseling center, and those people are sitting at home right now because you can't go in and sit down with a Christian counselor in person. If you're leading a center like that, you can team up with Brad. How would that How does that work, Brad? If you had other half-timers around the country that are either have, 7,000 employees that are working in a factory and still going to work every day, or they're idling at home and have some mental health issues that are coming up as a result of being, in isolation, how would that work?
Well, I would say reach out to us. I mean, we take care of a lot of self-insured employers. We're in most of the major insurance companies, and so we're available to help you. And then if you're a counselor, you own a counseling company, we're always looking for great people. And one of our hallmarks, though, is, and this comes from my Disney background, excellence. So we really want to have, customer service excellence, and we want to have excellence in our counselors, because there's a huge difference between an A counselor and a C counselor in terms of outcomes. So we're very selective in who we pick. We have a very rigorous vetting process, but we're always looking for great people and would love to talk to you. So, please feel free to reach out on our website, send us a contact form, and we'll be back in touch with you.
Brad, the mental health thing for you, though, is not just another kind of intriguing customer service challenge like the funeral home business, but mental health is deeply connected to a person's spiritual journey, isn't it? So talk a bit about that and why this gets you up every morning when you could just be picking up shells on a beach somewhere every day right now.
Well, if you think about it, mental illness is really spiritual darkness. And we see numerous instances in the Bible where Jesus and his apostles would cast out evil demons or spirits. And that was mental illness. And so that's really what we're trying to do, is to help people to be healed. And once they're healed, obviously they can be much more open to spiritual discussions. But until you take care of physical and mental illness, it's very difficult to do that. And so we, again, going back to kind of my calling, we feel that we're helping to repair creation by helping these people to work through and overcome their mental illness. And it's not just by coincidence that the tagline of our company is "Live Again."
Wow, new life. So I want to take a short tangent, and then we'll wrap up here at the top of the hour, or at the bottom of the hour. But you led the Epcot Center through the 9/11 crisis. So this is not your first rodeo with global crises. So what are the one or two things you've learned that would apply to any of our halftime tribe that are on our webinar tonight?
Sure. Well, crises require leadership. And the people on this call are leaders. So you can tell the leaders because they race into the situation, not away from it. So I would tell you, exert your leadership. See where God's calling you to jump in and do it. After this pandemic is all over, just like the greatest generation was asked, "Hey, Grandpa, what did you do during the war?" We're going to get asked by our kids and our grandkids and say, "Hey, Grandma, what did you do during the pandemic?" And if your answer is, "Well, I got a lot of books read, or I caught up on my TV," that's probably not the best answer. It was interesting. There was a church here in town, a large church, and they are calling every single person in their church to see how they're doing, and have created a benevolence fund. And so people who have more are able to give to people who have less. I mean, to me, that's what an Acts 2 church does. So, talk to your church leadership. Say, "Hey, I want to set up a plan to call everybody in the church and see how they're doing." Last week, Bob Dole talked about, people are calling them, "What do I do with my portfolio?" Well, I can tell you, having led 5,000 hourly cast members at Epcot, hourly employees don't have portfolios. And so if you have a portfolio, think about how you can use that to help other people right now who have nothing.
Yeah.
And you were talking about hotels with zero occupancy. All those employees now don't have jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And so what can you do to create jobs for them? What can you do to support them in the short term? There's a lot of ways that we can step out in this crisis, and that's what leaders do.
Well, we're going to stop here. Just one other quick thing I wanted you just to give us a 1-minute comment on, Brad, if you don't mind, is this crisis has really shortened the half-life of making it accessible to do online Christian counseling. I mean, it seems like you were pushing a rock up a hill before this, and all of a sudden everybody's knocking on your door.
Well, it did seem like a David versus Goliath journey for the past 3 years. We'd be going to government entities and insurance companies and saying, we got to do this, we got to do this. And there was just this inertia, and people, well, we've never done it that way. And then all of a sudden, the coronavirus hits, and it's like, wait a minute, people ought to be getting their care in their home. And so we see Medicare saying, and if there was any organization that needed to provide home telemental health, it was Medicare. These are the folks who had the least access to leave their home, and yet Medicare required them to go to a facility to get mental health care. They waived that. And we're seeing a lot of the restrictions that were previously there getting put aside. And so it's kind of interesting. In the past, we were the last resort where people would say, well, if we can't find a counselor nearby to serve them and with an appointment, I guess we'll call these eHome people. And now it's become the opposite. It's, well, why would we ever send anyone to the physical office of the counselor? Let's send them to eHome, and where they can get their care at home. So, through all this, God's in control. He is leading the way. He's putting the stone in the sling for us, and it's just amazing to see, how being faithful to Him, He becomes faithful to us as well.
So, if we're going to wrap up here, Doug, but if you are listening and thinking, gosh, I wish I knew I had that kind of clarity that Tana and Brad have, I would encourage you to connect with our Halftime Institute team at halftime.org and just take advantage of some fast coaching right now to help you figure out how to make the biggest impact through your platform in the darkest hours. Even 3 short coaching sessions over the next few weeks would help you sort this all out and almost push a restart for the next season. We've spent 22 years figuring out how to help people like you. And Brad and Tana, it's just a joy to see the fruit in your lives these many years later. So Doug, take us into the questions and let's talk a little bit more. And we will for those who have to go, they can go, right, Doug?
Absolutely. We understand. We try and keep these to about half an hour. So if you need to leave, we understand that. But if you submitted a question, you don't necessarily have to be there in the live event to get it answered. So if you want to write one right quick and leave, actually you get a unique email where your answer is answered exactly in the video. So you don't even have to watch the whole thing. So we understand people are busy. So if you have to leave, we understand it. We thank you so much for your time today. Now, for those that have time, we're going to move into the question. Looks like we've got about a half dozen of them. And so we will move into those right now. So, and if you look at the questions and you don't necessarily want to enter one, everybody gets a vote. So if you see one that you want to push up and try and get there a little bit earlier, click on there and we'll move into those. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and just take it from the top. And our first one is for you, Tana. I know you especially have emphasized helping women in difficult situations. What do you say to the single moms out there with young children that may be home now with their children, wondering what the future will bring? Possibilities of unemployment and homeschooling, which they may not be prepared for.
Well, I have been there myself, so it's been a long time, many years, but I can say that just through practice through my life is you need your quiet time. So whether that means you get up an hour before the kids wake up or 30 minutes before the kids wake up, it's very important for you to have your self-care time. So I highly suggest you go to that. And then you got to turn this over to God. This is bigger than us. It's bigger than something we can handle. and you try to stay in the moment. That's the other thing. It's so easy to look back to the past or to look to the future. And that's very hard for us right now. I think you've got to enjoy every moment you've got with those kids. This is a rare moment that you could have one-on-one time with them, is as hard as it is. And becoming a teacher, I know I couldn't do that very well. But I just think that God's given you this time, and you've got to really appreciate it and be in the moment with them, and then find that time for yourself. I think that's the most critical thing.
Thank you, Tana. I love that answer. That was beautiful. Our next one, it looks like, Brad, you're up on that one. Brad, you have reinvented yourself many times, and you've been quite successful at it, or so it appears. Some may be forced to reinvent themselves in light of recent developments. What would you say to someone who just really can't hardly come to grips that they must now embrace something totally new to them?
Well, Doug, I've had 20 different jobs in 12 different industries in 35 years. So yes, I've done a lot of different things. I would love to say all of them were successful. Unfortunately, I can't say that. And frankly, in some cases, they were jobs I wanted and jobs that I didn't really want. But in each one, you just have to say, what is God teaching me here? What am I supposed to be learning? The experiences that you're getting will ultimately pay off. I believe in God's economy. Every experience we go through, good or bad, is part of a journey for the future. And so just to give you a quick example of that, I was a nuclear submarine officer. And so when I came into Epcot, my second day on the job was 9/11. I was in the emergency command center and had to, go through all that. And afterwards, somebody said, wow, you just seemed so kind of calm in there. How did you just seem to know what to do? And I said, well, I had done hundreds of casualty drills on a nuclear submarine. And so that wasn't new to me, but how would I have ever have recognized that someday I would have used that experience on a nuclear submarine in closing down Epcot theme park on 9/11? So just get everything you can out of every experience. And you're going to go through good, you're going to go through bad. When you go through the bad experiences, just think about, when I'm in a leadership role, these are the things I'm going to do differently. When you go through the good experience, these are the things I'm going to continue to do. But it's all about refining you into the person that God wants you to be and get your entire God-given potential.
Thank you. And I especially love that story. Brad, you're up for the next one.
Okay.
For leaders of Christian counseling centers where counselors could be idle, how can they be utilized by your organization?
Well, again, I would say reach out to us. Send us a contact form. Would love to talk to them. As I say, we're always looking for counselors. There's lots of opportunity out there, and we would love to have you join us. So please let me know. ehomegroup.com, and we'll follow up. We've got a fabulous team that vets our counselors, and so would love to talk to you.
Well, Brad, looks like you're the best one for the next one. So I'm we'll get to that one.
Wait a minute here. Hang on.
And Ellen is challenging you a little bit here. Ellen says, I came from a long line of undertakers. Just curious why the funeral home business was identified as lacking in customer service. My dad, uncles, and grandpa worked hard to make sure the experience was as low stress as possible.
One of the best things when I came in, the company that I ran was Foundation Partners Group. We had 50 funeral homes and 9 cemeteries around the country. And what just amazed me was the heart and the compassion of the people in the funeral industry. And by the way, many of them Christians. I think doing that job day in and day out, you need that spiritual foundation. So the idea, though, was not that we were not providing good service. It was, how can we provide a different level of experience? So, for example, what I tried to do was to bring Disney to the funeral industry. And what I mean by that is that many services are kind of generic, somber, sad, and they don't really talk about the person's life. So we created this whole idea of having a celebration of the person's life. And in that, we actually created something we called the Share Life Multisensory Experience Room, where we installed large screens, high definition projectors, high quality audio, a scent generator. And so you could actually have your celebration of life on the beach, on the golf course, at the Eiffel Tower, wherever you wanted to have it, because we would recreate that scene for you. And what was so satisfying to me was to see how our funeral directors use that creatively to really honor people's lives and do something very different for them. And then the family feedback was just amazing. So please, Ellen, it was not at all a criticism of the work the amazing work that funeral directors do. It was much more about giving them new tools to do their job even more effectively.
All right. I'm going to try and get everybody else on screen here as we tackle some of the last questions. Get yours in before we wrap up here. So our next one comes from Zella. How can a small church with limited resources use its platform for good during this crisis?
I think you first reach out to your members to see who needs what, because I'm sure there's somebody in there that needs something, even if it's just to have a conversation. I think that you probably have enough to do just right there.
All right. Anybody else want to jump in that one?
I agree completely. I mean, they're just keeping in touch with people. This is I'll just talk on the mental health issues of the pandemic right now. When you isolate people in a high stress situation, the mental illness or the capacity to have mental illness occur increases dramatically. And so what we need to do is to actually be in touch with people, not allow them to be isolated, call them, be in touch. There's all kinds of ways that you can help. The platform we're using or the Zoom platform, that sort of thing, you can actually use to get people together, and they can see each other, they can talk, they can share, even though you may not be able to be physically together. So absolutely, get people together, get your church together, and then figure out how you as a church, even a small church, what can you do in your community to help others? Because that's what we're called to do right now.
And remember that the church is really not the building, it's the people. And those people own heavy equipment businesses. They own apartments in town. They own restaurants. They own lots of different things. And so this comes down to individuals sitting in the pews. If they don't know their calling, and if they don't have capacity, if I have no margin, I have no ministry. And so part of being a leader in a church is to equip the people to know their purpose, Ephesians 2:10 purpose on this planet, which means they have to know their skills and their strengths and their passions and have a mission statement like we talked about with Brad. And then to challenge them to think about how they use their skills. So in my church, I have a cohort with a colleague and I of the business owners in our church. And I'm going to get them together this weekend on Zoom to talk specifically about how do you use your platform to advance God's kingdom in our community and as part of our church. And one person owns 8 or 10 Five Guys burgers and fries, and they're sitting over there doing nothing. So what can they do with all those kitchens? Let's get our heads together and really figure that out. And some of them are executives at Lowe's home office, which is right here across the highway from me. And so this is about what I would call the failure of the imagination. This is taking your time to think creatively, like not just what are the limited resources that come through the coffers of the church. That's probably 4 or 5% of the wealth sitting in the church. Most of it has not been tapped into because people don't have a big vision. And where there's no vision, the people perish. So part of our role as leaders is to not have a scarcity mentality. It's to think about how many things are right around us that are within a few miles that could redeploy and make a huge impact in the hearts and minds of people. As I mentioned last week, in the year 262, there were 5,000 people dying every day in the city of Rome, and Christians showed up. And one of the things they did was they just cared for people outside their family. It was radically different. And it transformed the church. The church grew from 6 million to 50 million in a few generations. And it became a shining light in church history. It's easy to study. Go read the book, The Rise of Christianity by Rodney Stark. It's a powerful witness to what we're having an opportunity for today.
Well, what a insightful question, Zella. Thank you for doing that. We have a couple of more. Tana, it looks like you're up for this one. So what is your vision for continuing to expand your platform?
I want to introduce flex work to every company in the world, to where the people that need those flex hours to make ends meet can have that opportunity. To me, I'm not going to stop until I feel like I've achieved that. So it's definitely a huge mission, but I'm up for the task.
I'll bet you are.
That's fine.
All right. Brad, right now, it looks like you've got the next two questions. So our first one for you is from AJ. And AJ says, Brad, tell us about how you structure your charges for counseling services. I'm involved with several rescue missions, which have significant counseling needs. We have counselors that work with clients on a sliding charge scale based on what a client can afford to pay. What do you guys work with your clients?
Well, we have a variety of different clients. So anywhere from insurance companies, we work with Wounded Warrior Project for veterans with PTSD and other situations. So it really kind of depends on the particulars of each individual situation, but would love to talk to them about it and see what we can work out to help. We've through this crisis basically dropped our direct pay pricing to help people, and we're not turning people away because we want people to get care during this. So, but I will say, we're a business and we're not a nonprofit, and I think it's very important that we be sustainable that way so that we can stay in business for a long time. And so, we do, but we're certainly very open to different arrangements and different ways to figure things out. And so I would just encourage AJ to reach out to me and let's talk.
All right, AJ, probably the easiest way to do it, and it's been posted there in the text, if you'll just email halftime@halftime.org, we'll get you in touch with Brad.
Perfect.
All right, our next one coming up. This one looks like also for you, Brad. Regarding the statement, mental healthness is really spiritual darkness. How would you explain or distinguish mental health issues between non-believers and believers? Since believers cannot be possessed, is it an opposition issue? Or how would you explain the difference? Or for example, how would you treat a believer who may be suffering from depression or anxiety?
Well, it's a very interesting question. And I think there's some misperceptions in the Christian community, for example, about mental illness. Mental illness is the same as physical illness. It impacts people, depending upon your genetic upbringing, the trauma that you've experienced, the environment that you live in, all those things, whether you go to church or you don't, all those things still impact you. And the important thing is that you get treatment. So let me give a perfect example. I'm on something called Project Opioid, which is a Central Florida initiative to combat the opioid epidemic. And as significant as the coronavirus is, certainly, many people don't realize 130 people a day die from opioid overdoses. 100 children a day are born addicted, one every 15 minutes. That's a day. Okay. So this is a huge issue facing our country. The treatment for addiction is medication, medication-assisted treatment, and behavioral health counseling. The combination of those two. If you do that, you can be successful in beating addiction. Now, I've had people come to me and say, well, all you need to do is pray to Jesus and he will cure your addiction. Jesus absolutely cures addiction, but he uses medication and counseling to do it. So we need to understand that it doesn't mean you're a bad Christian if you have a mental illness. Everybody is susceptible to that. And Jesus knew that. Jesus knew that was part of what happened when creation was broken. And now he's given us the tools to repair that. And so I just encourage anyone, please, please, if you have a mental illness, reach out. The sooner you identify it, the sooner you start taking care of it, like any other physical illness, the easier it is to take care of. But if you wait until too much longer, it gets much, much more difficult. So please reach out and get help.
Thank you, Brad. That was a very good answer. I enjoyed that. Thank you. Our next one actually is for Tana, you and Brad. So Brad, since I've got you up on the screen, I'll start with you, and then Tana will come to you if you don't mind. Are your services, oh, excuse me, I had to start it here. Are your services accessible all across the entire country?
Almost. We're in 42 states plus the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico right now. And so we're looking for just a few more counselors, but to fit out the other 8 states. But right now, yeah, we're in 42 states. So, and that changes as we add counselors. So as I say, we're always recruiting great counselors, particularly from states where there aren't that many counselors, but pretty much nationwide.
So Tana, what about you?
We are nationwide and hopefully in Canada soon.
Go Canada. Yes.
Yes, I thought you said that,
Being
Lloyd.
a Canadian, eh?
Hey?
By the way, the ice is melting up there nowadays. So, and it's maple syrup season, so that's a sweet thing.
That's good.
Love that stuff.
Yes.
All right. Looks like we got one last question. So we'll wrap up with that one. And unless there's another one, we'll wrap up our hour together. So this one is to you, Tana. Tana, what obstacles have you encountered while responding to the current situation, and how did you move forward?
That needs another show unto itself, I think. I think the biggest obstacles that we're running into is trying to figure out what the law is doing right now, because it's not only happening in the federal government, but it's happening in each state is creating their own laws. And because we have employees everywhere, I think the biggest issue is trying to figure out how to take care of the employees and deal with what's coming down the pike as well. So for me, it's always caring for the people first. So every hour something's changing, and we're trying to figure out, somebody's been diagnosed and they were exposed to these people, and we're working in critical environments. And that's been the hardest thing, because you just want to take care of everybody. And it's been very trying, and it's kept me up a lot at night, just worrying about how we're going to deal with this and keep the supply chain moving. So that's been the hardest thing, but God will take care of it.
Well, I think that brings us to the end of our questions. I first of all want to thank everybody in the audience that has joined us, and especially Tana and Brad. You brought some fantastic insights, and Lloyd, you always have such fantastic questions. We appreciate that. Lloyd, is there a closing comment that you or possibly Tana or Brad would want to make?
Yeah, from my perspective, this is just watching them and the joy on their face. it's not an easy work they're doing, but it's who they were created to be. And like the French poet said, when you discover your calling, if you don't live it out, it will follow you like an accusing shadow. And you can see that for Brad and Tana, this is in them, right? They can't not do this. And that's when you know you've sunken deep into your calling. So Galatians 6 says, give careful thought to who you are and the work you've been given, and sink yourself into it. So our encouragement to you is sink yourself into your calling. Let us connect you with other people that can help you with it. And if you don't know your calling, let us help you either through a virtual cohort like a roundtable, or through some simple coaching, and help you find the clarity you need to get clear, get free, and get going.
Well, again, we thank you, everyone, for being here, especially our audience. If you want to get in touch with any of the speakers, I think what Alyssa has posted there in the chat with the halftime at halftime.org, we will get you in touch with any of the folks that have joined us today. So again, we thank you for spending a few minutes with us. And our next webinar, our next planned webinar, is April 23rd, Exiting Your First Career Well. And the webinar is recorded. A link will be sent over to those that have registered for the webinar. You can still register even though the webinar is over. Just go to the Facebook group. So again, everybody, thank you so much. We appreciate
Thanks,
your
everybody.
time.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Brad and Tana. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, Lloyd.
Bye-bye. Thank
Thanks,
you, Lloyd.
Doug.
Thanks, Doug.